Say, I don't get political, but they're all shit.
To pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who's a friend as well as a colleague.
You wouldn't call Jeremy Corbyn a friend?
No.
When are we going to stop taking went to Eton as a qualification to run the country? I mean, now.
Not for you, not for working people, for tax cuts for the richest 1% in our society. Don't forget, don't forgive. The only way to stop this is with a Labour government.
Keir Starmer must be rethinking every life choice he's ever made, because Ricky Gervais just tore his political facade apart with the precision of a surgeon and the subtlety of a wrecking ball. In a blistering interview, Gervais didn't just mock Starmer, he dismantled him. The so-called champion of the people? Turns out he's more like the champion of higher taxes, skyrocketing bills and broken promises.
People in charge, the posh, privileged people in charge, were acting like fucking Charlie Sheen. I mean, really fucking rubbing salt in the wound. And as I say, I don't get political, but they're all shit.
Remember that bold pledge for great British energy to save the nation from the energy crisis? Yeah, that never happened. Instead, the public got crippling costs while Starmer's government enjoyed the high life. Oh, but it gets better. Gervais exposed a bizarre secret that has everyone talking, one so damning it could sink Starmer's already shaky ship of credibility.
So that's why I'm doing this as well, because I've noticed all around, you know, there's a lot of annoyance and frustration, totally justified as well. Misinformation, anger.
From silencing free speech to cutting pensioner allowances during a cost of living crisis, Starmer's track record reads like a guidebook on how to alienate an entire nation. And Gervais? He's not letting it slide. With every word, he's pulling back the curtain on a leader who talks big but delivers chaos. If Starmer thought he could sweep this under the rug, he clearly underestimated the power of Gervais's unrelenting spotlight.
We will set up Great British Energy within the first year of a Labour government, a new company. And because it is right for jobs, because it is right for growth, because it is right for energy independence from tyrants like Putin, then yes, conference, Great British Energy will be publicly owned.
When are we going to stop taking went to Eton as a qualification to run the country? I mean, now.
Keir Starmer is not having a good day, week or even year, and Ricky Gervais just made sure of it. In a takedown so sharp it could cut glass, Gervais took one look at Starmer's so-called leadership and shredded it like yesterday's tabloids. The man who once promised a better Britain, a great British energy, and policies that would fix the country's woes, is now standing in the ruins of broken promises, public outrage, and, let's face it, a political dumpster fire. And Gervais? He's gleefully poking at the ashes with a stick.
Knows what that means.
Tommy Robinson has today been jailed for 18 months after admitting contempt of court in relation to allegations made against a Syrian schoolboy. The former EDL leader was banned from repeating the claims made about refugee Jamal Hijazi, who was beaten up in Huddersfield in 2018. He was previously ordered to pay £100,000 in damages after the 15-year-old successfully sued over videos wrongly claiming he attacked young English girls.
Let's start with that famous promise of great British energy. Sounds powerful, right? Like something Churchill would rally behind. Starmer waved it around like a golden ticket during his campaign, assuring voters he'd tackle the energy crisis head-on. Fast forward to today, and where is it? Nowhere. Instead of delivering cheaper, reliable energy, Starmer's government has handed Brits higher taxes and skyrocketing bills. Energy companies? Thriving. The average citizen? Holding their wallets tighter than ever.
Because when you say he was arrested under terror charges, I mean, he's clearly not a terrorist, is he?
Certainly not. I mean, certainly from the information that's been provided, he has clearly obviously spoken out about matters that he believes in. Not everybody necessarily agrees with him. And there is this argument with regards to freedom of speech. Right. And that...
Ricky Gervais wasted no time ripping this apart, calling it not just a failure, but a con job. He pointed out what many had already suspected. Starmer knew exactly what he was doing. dangle a shiny promise, win some votes, and then conveniently forget about it. Politicians breaking promises isn't new, but Gervais made it clear. This isn't your run-of-the-mill betrayal. This one stings because people really believe Starmer would be different. Spoiler alert, he's not.
Thousands of prisoners have been released earlier today as part of a government scheme to ease overcrowding in jails. Offenders sentenced to more than 5 years will be released on licence after spending 40% of their time behind bars. The government has said the hope is to do better at rehabilitating offenders and expand forms of punishment.
While regular people are struggling to choose between heating their homes and buying groceries, Starmer's government is living it up. Gervais didn't hold back, calling out the hypocrisy of politicians who preach sacrifice while sipping champagne in their mansions. Tax hikes, energy price hikes, oh, those are for you, not for the elite. The people at the top are doing just fine. Thanks very much. According to Gervais, this glaring disconnect isn't just bad optics, it's a slap in the face. How can anyone take Starmer seriously when his policies scream, rich first, everyone else later? It's the kind of leadership that makes you wonder if they even remember what it's like to be a regular person. Spoiler, they don't.
Version 7.0 of his time in office doesn't extend as far as answering questions or giving any information on those prisoners he is releasing early. Basic details like how many, where are they, what crimes have they committed? So will he at least guarantee that none of the criminals he is instructing prisoners to release early are considered high risk?
And then there's the matter of free speech, or the lack of it. Gervais went straight for the jugular on this one, pointing to Starmer's role in the jailing of Tommy Robinson. Now, Robinson isn't everyone's cup of tea, but the principle here is what matters. Starmer's crackdown on dissent doesn't exactly scream democracy in action. Instead, it reeks of authoritarian overreach. Gervais, being the champion of saying what you're not supposed to say, had a field day with this. Silencing opposition doesn't make problems go away, it only makes them louder. And if Starmer thought this move would win him any points, he seriously miscalculated. All it's done is fuel public frustration and make people question just how far he's willing to go to control the narrative.
There's some extraordinary celebratory scenes outside Britain's prisons where in some cases serious career criminals were released. And this to make way for, yes, rioters, but equally those who've said unpleasant things on Facebook and elsewhere on social media. Does the Prime Minister understand? There is a growing feeling of anger in this country that we are living through two-tier policing and a two-tier justice.
If you thought the energy crisis and free speech issues were bad, let's talk about Starmer's genius solution to prison overcrowding by simply letting them out early. Gervais tore into this with the kind of wit that leaves permanent scars. Who needs public safety when you can save a buck, right? The problem isn't just the policy itself, it's the total lack of transparency. Who exactly is being released? Petty thieves or violent offenders? No one knows, and that's the problem. Gervais didn't sugarcoat it. Starmer's decision is reckless, short-sighted, and puts ordinary people at risk. But hey, as long as it solves his overcrowding issue, who cares about the details?
But I think the next pandemic is going to be like anxiety and depression, you know. God knows how it affects like teenagers who...
Let's not forget the cherry on this disaster Sunday by cutting winter fuel allowances for pensioners. If there's one group you don't mess with, it's the elderly. But apparently Starmer missed that memo. While the wealthy get to keep their tax breaks, pensioners are being left to freeze in the dark. Gervais didn't pull any punches here, calling out the sheer cruelty of it all.
Pressure's growing on Sir Keir Starmer to reverse his decision to cut winter fuel payments for the most pensioners. The head of Britain's largest trade union has accused Labour of picking the pocket of pensioners while leaving the richest totally untouched. The Prime Minister is facing a possible rebellion by some Labour MPs when the Parliament votes on policy tomorrow.
This isn't just bad policy, it's political suicide. Pensioners vote, and they don't forget. Cutting their allowances while ignoring the excesses of the rich sends a clear message. Starmer's priorities are as upside down as his promises. Gervais summed it up perfectly. It's not just a betrayal, it's an insult.
Friends, people simply do not understand. I do not understand how our new Labour government can cut the winter fuel allowance for pensioners and leave the super rich voted for. It's the wrong decision and it needs to be reversed.
What makes all of this worse is the pattern it reveals. Starmer isn't just failing in one area, he's failing across the board. Gervais laid it out in no uncertain terms. Broken promises, mismanagement and policies that hurt the most vulnerable aren't isolated incidents. They're a reflection of a leader who's out of touch, out of ideas, and quickly running out of public support. This isn't just a bad week for Starmer, it's a spotlight on everything wrong with his leadership. Gervais didn't just highlight the cracks in Starmer's facade, he exposed the entire crumbling structure for everyone to see.
Structural action in the NHS alone cost the taxpayer £1.7 billion last year. That is why I am pleased to announce today that the government has agreed an offer to the junior doctors, which the BMA are recommending.
Ricky Gervais isn't a politician, and that's exactly why his words hit so hard. He's not bound by party lines or political jargon. He says what people are thinking but doesn't know how to say. And when he takes aim, it's not just Starmer who feels the impact, it's the entire political establishment. Gervais' criticism isn't just commentary, it's a wake-up call. He's holding up a mirror to a system that's failing the very people it's supposed to serve. And Starmer? He's front and centre in that reflection, looking more and more like the problem instead of the solution.
Naive, all my life. It's not till now I just go, why do we trust them? Of course we shouldn't trust the people in charge. That's how they're in charge. They shouldn't be trusted.
Well, that depends on whether Starmer can pull off the political equivalent of a miracle. Gervais didn't just expose his failures, he amplified them, turning public frustration into public outrage. The energy crisis, prisoner releases, cuts to pensioners, it's all out in the open now, and people are paying attention. Starmer's approval ratings were already shaky, and this isn't going to help.
Important in the country than the well-being of children, yes or no?
Yes.
Would you agree that the 2-child benefit limit has pushed more children into poverty, yes or no?
It's caused real problems, I would agree with that.
So why won't you scrap it?
Because...
This is the most important thing you just agreed with me in the country, and you won't scrap a policy that is pushing children into poverty.
Look, it is the most important thing. And there are things, we will have a child poverty strategy. We'll put it in place straight away to deal with the underlying causes of child poverty. So that's the bills that people are paying, overcrowded accommodation. But what I'm not going to do is put something in the manifesto which, on the current state of the economy, I don't think that we can properly afford.
If anything, it's going to push more people to question his leadership and whether he's capable of delivering on anything he promised. And let's be real, once trust is gone, it's nearly impossible to get it back.
Here this morning supporting the staff at McDonald's who are on strike.
Previously, you told your front bench not to cross the picket line. That was for the strikes back in June. Is that something you'll be saying to them again?
Yeah.
Air quality, climate change is the issue of our time, and as the Extinction Rebellion protest showed us this week, the next generation are not going to forgive us if we don't take action.
I think they're wrong. I think their action is wrong. Get up, go home. I'm opposed to what you're doing. It's not the way to deal with the climate crisis.
So why should you believe?
Ricky Gervais didn't just criticise Keir Starmer, he dismantled him. In one blistering commentary, he laid bare the failures, the hypocrisy, and the sheer incompetence that define Starmer's leadership. It wasn't just a takedown, it was a masterclass in calling out nonsense. For Starmer, the message is clear. Step up or step aside. Because if Gervais's words are anything to go by, the public has had enough. And honestly, they're not wrong.
I bet the other 200,000 members of the gang are absolutely terrified, because, there's a lot more than one person who's behind all this. But at the end of the day as well, this, to me, is a bit like the Tories trumpeting how they were sending people back to Rwanda, and they went, how many people have you sent? One bloke has gone, and we paid him 3,000 quid. It's kind of that level of idiocy.
Keir Starmer's leadership is under fire, and Ricky Gervais has sparked a conversation that can't be ignored. Now it's your turn to take action. Speak up, share your thoughts, and hold leaders accountable. Demand transparency, challenge broken promises, and fight for a government that truly represents you, not the elite. The louder we get, the harder it is for politicians to ignore. Don't let this moment pass in silence. Join the debate, stay informed, and push for real change. Together, we can ensure leaders like Starmer face the consequences of their failures. Let your voice be the spark for accountability.